Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Eric Osuna coming at you from Berkeley, California, talking about the intersection of where media and tech meet, motivation, meditation, and manifestation. And today I'm talking about this article that came out recently in the Washington Post, but there's been a lot of articles. I'm going to post the most recent article that I read down here in the comments. The article is about, here, let me read it to you. So the headline is, quote unquote, Latinx hasn't even caught on among Latinos. It never will. So this word Latinx, Latinx, it's a word that's being used a lot in textbooks now, in official papers by universities. Also, it's being used on campuses and universities a lot. On thesis statements, on PhD studies. The word Latinx is just really prevalent at the scholarly level. And if you're not familiar with the word, I'm going to link it down here so you can kind of understand what this whole controversy is about. And as you may or may not know, I'm the CEO of Latin Live, and that's a Latinx themed media tech company. And before we launched that company, I really wanted to find out how the word Latin was going to do. And I'd already known, just being in the market, understanding the adaptation of the word, even Latin, forget about Latinx, Latin in the community, there's still trouble with the adaptation of the word Latin. That's not even to mention the word Hispanic and the other words like Chicano and Hispanic, come into play in other areas as well. I mean, there's a lot of back and forth on those terms as well. In terms of Latinx, so this is back in 2014 when I launched Latin Live, and I wanted to find out what people's thoughts were about. Even the word Latinx was still on the fringe back then, but it was being used. And we tested that word. It didn't test very well with the demographic that we were going after, which was a younger demographic. We did these studies in California and Texas because we wanted to make sure that we launched really well in those markets. The word Latin didn't come back very well. The word Latinx, just people did not like it at all. It was just a terrible word. And then Chicano also wasn't very positive. Hispanic also wasn't positive. What people wanted is, hey, I'm Puerto Rican. Hey, I'm Mexican. Forget that. I'm from Guadalajara. Way. You know what I mean? The main thing that's going to drive similarity is going to be the language. The next thing is going to be the culture. The culture sometimes may be very different. For example, an Argentinian is going to be very different than, for example, a Peruvian, even though the countries are, close to each other. They both speak Spanish. One country loves beans and rice. The other country doesn't really eat beans and rice. And even within the Mexican Americans in the US, there's a lot of differences. Let's say a second generation Houston Mexican American is going to be very different than, a Mexican American that, let's just say, is a recent immigrant in Los Angeles. So even though the term Latinx may not work from a perspective of when Latinos meet each other, they say, hey, I'm Puerto Rican American. Hey, I'm Mexican American. Hey, I'm Honduran American. So that's kind of the way we would introduce ourselves if we met. Let's say that I'm at a corporate party, for example, and I'm Mexican American, right? Somebody comes up to me that's not Latino and says, hey, I heard a lot of Hispanics voted for Biden. So at that point, I'm not going to break it down to this gentleman and say, hey, Cubans in Florida voted for Trump. The Tejanos in Texas voted for Trump. And I'm not going to break it down I'm going to say, yeah, Hispanics voted for, I'm going to use the terminology that makes the most sense for the situation. I do think that some people do get offended when you call them that. Hey, don't call me that. I hear a lot of that happening, especially in California and Texas. Hey, don't call me Latino. Don't call me Latinx. Hey, don't call me. And then some people may want you to call them. I'll give you just a little example here. I was at the the San Francisco Pride Parade one year, a couple years ago, and I was interviewing if somebody who's famous and who is Latinx. So what do you call somebody like that is not male or female? So Latinx makes a lot of sense, right? And when I introduced myself, I said it's wonderful to be in the presence of such beautiful Latinas. The Latinx person said to me, "Hey, I prefer to go by the term Latinx." And I said, "I'm so sorry. It's a pleasure to meet you, such beautiful Latinx person." So what I'm saying is that sometimes you're at a university setting and you're writing up a paper. You're not going to use, Salvadorian Americans, Honduran Americans, Mexican Americans, Puerto Rican Americans, Dominican Americans. You're going to want to categorize it under one term, right? If you're talking about a population that, for example, all speak Spanish, this kind of mishmash of different ethnicities that is scattered throughout the U.S., what do you call them? Hispanics. A lot of people in media and media business will use the word Hispanics. Now more the term that's being used is Latinx in media. And these are terms that are going to evolve. I don't know if Latinx is going to be a term that supersedes Hispanic, which was a term that was used for a long time. I'm curious to see what you think. I'm curious to hear your thoughts of where this word is going. I'm curious to see what you think. So leave it down here in the comments. Appreciate you guys following me, and talk to you next time. Peace.